The water was warm in the great council chambers of Prime. Elder Counselor floated behind her curved desk, her 6 arms moving through the liquid in slow, worried patterns. The emergency meeting had been going on for 3 days now, and still they had no answers. "The readings are getting worse," announced Science Director, his silver scales flickering with stress patterns. "The star is losing mass faster than our models predicted. We now estimate 18 months before complete collapse." Felt the water around her grow colder as fear spread through the chamber. 18 months. Their beautiful blue sun, which had warmed their oceans for millions of years, would explode and destroy everything they had ever known. "What about the evacuation plans?" asked Defense Coordinator On, though his voice carried little hope. "The Galactic Council estimates we can save perhaps 2 million of our people," replied. "The rest, there simply are not enough ships in the galaxy to move our entire population of 40 billion. The council chamber fell silent except for the gentle flow of water through the bioluminescent coral walls. Looked at the holographic display showing their solar system. Red warnings blinked around the sun, where the ancient machines continued their deadly work. The Stellar Reapers had awakened 6 months ago. No one knew exactly what had triggered them after sleeping for countless ages in the asteroid belt. The old stories spoke of a race called the Master Engineers who had vanished long before they had even developed space travel. The Reapers were supposed to be their greatest creation, but something had gone terribly wrong. "Show me the latest scan of the machines," commanded. The hologram changed, revealing the massive structures orbiting close to their sun. Each Reaper was the size of a small moon, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Dozens of them moved in perfect formation, extending long tubes into the star itself, drinking its nuclear fire like giant metal parasites. "They have already harvested 12% of the star's mass," reported. "The gravitational changes are affecting our tides, our weather, everything. If they continue at this rate, our sun will collapse into a black hole," finished. She had heard this report many times, but it never became easier to accept. "Elder Counselor," said a young voice from the back of the chamber. His daughter and one of their scientists swam forward. "What about the distress signal? Have we received any responses?" His heart sank further. The hegemony of worlds declined to help. They said the risk is too great. The Crystalline Empire offered to take 50,000 refugees to work in their mining colonies. The Machine Collective simply responded with calculations showing that our destruction will have minimal impact on galactic trade routes. "And the others?" "The others have not even replied," moved her arms in a gesture of deep sadness. "It seems the galaxy views our crisis as either too dangerous or too insignificant to warrant their attention." On scales flashed angry red. 3,000 years we have been part of the galactic community, 3,000 years of trade, diplomacy, cultural exchange, and when we face extinction, they abandon us. "Perhaps," said slowly, "we should expand our signal beyond the established powers." "To whom?" asked. "We have contacted every major civilization in the sector." "What about the developing worlds, the younger species?" Almost dismissed the idea immediately. What could primitive civilizations do that the great powers of the galaxy could not? But then she looked at the hologram again, at the red warning lights, at the countdown showing 18 months until their world ended. Desperate times called for desperate measures. "Very well," she said finally. "Expand the signal. Send it to every world with space travel capability, regardless of their development level." The technicians worked through the night cycle, broadcasting their plea for help across the galaxy. The message was simple. "This is Elder Counselor of the Commonwealth. Our star is being consumed by ancient machines. We face extinction in 18 months. Any civilization capable of space travel, please respond if you can offer aid. We have technology, resources, anything you might need in exchange for help saving our 40 billion people." Most responses came back quickly and were disappointingly familiar. "Unable to assist due to resource constraints. Technology insufficient for requested aid. Suggest immediate evacuation protocols." Then, 37 hours after the expanded signal went out, they received a response that made everyone in the command center stop what they were doing. "Message received. Help is on the way." The transmission came from a small blue-green planet in the outer rim, a world most galactic maps barely bothered to label. The sender identified himself as Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Space Command. Earth pulled up the planet's file. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their technology level is classified as emerging spacefaring species. They have fewer than a dozen ships capable of interstellar travel. And they think they can help us when the hegemony of worlds cannot. On scales showed disbelief. But stared at the simple message. 4 words, help is on the way, not we will consider it, or we need to study the situation, or we require compensation. Just a promise given without hesitation. Send a reply, she ordered. Ask them what they need from us. Star charts, technical specifications, resource inventories. The human response came back within the hour. Send us everything you have about the machines and your star. We will figure out the rest. Over the next 3 days, they transmitted every piece of data they had collected about the stellar Reapers. Historical records, energy readings, failed attack attempts by their defense fleet, theoretical models, everything. The humans asked detailed questions about things no other civilization had cared about. They wanted to know about the Reapers' construction materials, their movement patterns, even their apparent communication methods. Why do they want to know how the machines talk to each other? Wondered as she compiled another data packet. Perhaps, said thoughtfully, they see something we have missed. The final human message arrived as their star began showing new signs of instability. Solar flares were increasing in frequency, and the outermost planets were experiencing temperature fluctuations that killed millions of organisms in their frozen seas. Fleet departure confirmed, estimated arrival in 87 days. Do not attempt any operations against the machines until we arrive. Admiral sends her personal promise that Earth will not abandon you. Floated in her private chambers that night, looking up through the clear aluminum dome at their troubled star. The ancient Reapers continued their work, slowly killing the source of all life in their system. In 18 months, everything she had ever known would be gone. But somewhere in the dark space between stars, a small fleet of ships from a barely known world was racing toward them. Ships built by creatures who lived in air instead of water, who had only recently learned to travel between stars, who had no reason to risk themselves for strangers. Yet they came anyway. For the first time in months, allowed herself to hope. The human fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. Watched the ships emerge from faster-than-light travel at the edge of their solar system, and her first reaction was confusion. These are not warships, observed Defense Coordinator On, studying the sensor readings. His scales showed the gray patterns of bewilderment. The lead ship was clearly military, a long vessel bristling with weapon arrays and armor plating. But the rest of the fleet looked like nothing had ever seen in a rescue operation. There were massive construction ships with mechanical arms extending in all directions, mining vessels with drill arrays meant for asteroid work, even what appeared to be civilian passenger ships. How many vessels total? She asked. 43 ships, reported the sensor officer. But Elder Counselor, I am reading life signs that do not match their ship capacity. These vessels are carrying far more people than they should be able to hold. Science Director swam up to the main display. Perhaps they are transport ships for evacuation. No, said, who had been studying the human transmissions. Look at their supply manifests. They brought construction materials, mining equipment, scientific instruments. This is not an evacuation fleet. The main communication screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what was obviously the human flagship. The first thing noticed was how strange it looked compared to ships. Everything was dry, filled with air instead of water. The surfaces were hard metal and plastic instead of the flowing organic shapes her people preferred. The human who appeared on screen was clearly the fleet commander. She had dark skin and short black hair and wore a blue uniform covered with insignia. Her movements were quick and sharp, so different from the flowing grace of aquatic beings. Elder Counselor, the human said, and was surprised that the translation software captured not just the words but something like warmth in her voice. I am Admiral Sarah of the United Earth Space Command. We came as fast as we could. Admiral replied, trying to match the human's directness. We are grateful beyond words that you answered our call, but I must ask, what do you believe you can accomplish that the great powers of the galaxy cannot? The human smiled, an expression that took a moment to recognize. With respect, Elder Counselor, I think the great powers of the galaxy were asking the wrong question. What do you mean? They were asking, how do we destroy these machines? We prefer to ask, what are these machines trying to do? On scales flashed irritation. They are trying to destroy our star and kill us all. Are they? Admiral leaned forward in her chair. Our scientists spent the last 3 months analyzing your data. The machines are definitely harvesting stellar matter, but their behavior patterns are very specific, very precise. If they just wanted to destroy your star, there are much faster ways to do it. Sarms moved in the gesture of deep thought. You believe they have another purpose. We think they are trying to accomplish something, but their programming has been corrupted after millions of years without maintenance, like a clock that still keeps time but runs backwards. The idea was so simple that felt foolish for not considering it before. Everyone had assumed the ancient machines were weapons, but what if they were not? Admiral, she said slowly, what do you need from us? Permission to get close to one of these machines, close enough to study it properly. The council chamber erupted in protest. Even the usually calm showed alarm. Admiral, our finest warships could barely scratch their hulls. They destroyed our reconnaissance drones before they could get within 1,000 kilometers. Which is why we are not sending warships, replied calmly. We are sending scientists. The next few hours were filled with planning sessions that left head spinning. The humans worked differently than any species she had encountered. Where preferred careful deliberation and consensus, the humans seemed to make decisions at lightning speed, then immediately begin acting on them. Dr. the fleet's chief scientist was particularly fascinating. He was an older human with gray hair and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. During their first meeting, he spent more time asking about culture and biology than discussing the crisis. Your people have been spacefaring for over 3,000 years, he said, his voice filled with genuine excitement. The historical perspective you must have is incredible. We have only been in space for decades. Doctor, interrupted, who had been assigned as the liaison, should we not focus on the immediate problem? Oh, but we are, replied with that strange human smile. You see, understanding how different species think about problems is crucial to solving them. Your people are methodical, patient, excellent at long-term planning. Ours are more improvisational. To demonstrate this, showed them the human plan for approaching the stellar reapers. Instead of sending military vessels, they wanted to use a modified mining ship disguised as space debris. The plan relied on luck, timing, and what cheerfully called creative engineering. This plan has a 60% chance of failure, protested On. Which means it has a 40% chance of success, replied Captain, the human engineer who would lead the mission. Those are pretty good odds when everyone else has a 0% chance. Was a compact woman with hands and an easy laugh. She had been a software engineer on Earth before joining their Space Force, and she talked about reprogramming ancient alien machines the same way others might discuss fixing a broken computer. The key, she explained to the joint human technical team, is not to fight the machine's programming, but to understand what they are trying to do and help them do it correctly. You want to help the machines that are killing our star. His voice showed the stress patterns common to Young. Think about it, said patiently. These machines were built by a species that disappeared millions of years ago. They have been operating without supervision all that time. If you had a computer program that ran for millions of years without updates, what do you think would happen to it? It would develop errors, admitted. Corrupted data, failed processes, incorrect responses to input. Exactly. We think these machines are trying to do their job, but they have forgotten what their job actually is. The plan they developed was ambitious beyond anything had imagined. Instead of trying to destroy the Reapers, the humans wanted to capture one intact, study its programming, and fix whatever had gone wrong. It was the kind of bold, optimistic approach that her people would never have considered. Admiral said during one of their planning meetings, I must ask you something. Why are your people doing this? You barely know us. We have nothing to offer that would justify this risk. Was quiet for a moment, looking at the display showing their dying star. When she spoke, her voice was softer than usual. Elder Counselor, when we received your distress call, our leaders held exactly 17 minutes of debate before approving this mission. Do you know what we spent most of that time discussing? What? Whether we should send one fleet or two. The only disagreement was whether 43 ships would be enough. Felt something she had not experienced in months. Not hope exactly, but something like it. These strange, impulsive humans with their dry ships and quick decisions had traveled across the galaxy for one simple reason, because someone needed help. There is an old saying among our people, continued. When someone falls into the water, you do not stop to ask their name before throwing them a rope. As the human teams began their preparations, watched them work with growing amazement. They moved with purpose and energy, but also with something else: joy. These humans were actually enjoying the challenge of solving an impossible problem. Perhaps, she thought, that was exactly what they needed. For the first time since the crisis began, found herself believing they might actually survive this. Not because the humans were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. The mission to capture a stellar reaper would begin in 3 days. Captain checked her equipment one final time as the modified mining ship drifted toward the nearest stellar reaper. The massive machine was even more impressive up close, its dark metal surface covered with patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid shadow. Distance to target, 5,000 kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Commander James Park from the pilot's seat. No reaction from the Reaper yet. Nodded, watching the readings on her console. The ship had been disguised as a piece of space debris using a combination of human stealth technology and biomimetic materials. To any sensor, they should look like nothing more than a large chunk of metal drifting through space. "Remember," came Doctor's voice through the communication system from the command ship, "we are not trying to fight this thing. We just need to get close enough to scan its core systems and maybe grab a small piece for analysis." "Easy for you to say," muttered. "You are not the one flying into the mouth of a giant space monster." She could see the Reaper extending its feeding tubes into the star's corona. The amount of energy flowing through those connections was beyond imagination. Any ship that got too close would be vaporized instantly. Came another voice through the comm. This one belonged to who was monitoring the mission from the Joint Command Center. "I am reading some unusual energy patterns from the Reaper's hull. The signatures look almost like communication protocols." "Communication, it is talking to something." "Not exactly talking, more like reporting status, very regular, very structured." Frowned at her instruments. "Can you decode any of it?" "Working on it. Doctor thinks it might be some kind of ancient programming language." The ship continued its careful approach. At 2,000 kilometers, began deploying the scanning equipment. Modified sensor arrays extended from the mining vessel's hull, designed to penetrate the Reaper's outer shielding and analyze its internal systems. "Got it," Park announced suddenly. "I am reading massive data flows inside that thing. It is like a giant computer processing billions of calculations every second." "What kind of calculations?" asked. "That is the weird part. They look like stellar engineering equations. Mass flow rates, fusion efficiency calculations, gravitational field adjustments. It is like it is trying to fix the star, not destroy it." Felt her heart race. "Are you sure?" "Positive, and there is more. I am detecting similar energy patterns from all the other Reapers in the system. They are all connected, all sharing data." Through the comm system, she heard Doctor's excited voice. "Brilliant. They are not individual machines, they are components of a single massive system, like organs in a body, each one performing a specific function." "But what function?" asked. "Stellar maintenance," replied. "These machines were designed to keep stars healthy and stable. The ancient race that built them must have been master stellar engineers." Was beginning to understand the implications. So why are they making our star worse instead of better? "Corrupted programming," Kame's voice from the command center. "Millions of years of operation without updates or repairs. The machines still remember their purpose, but they have forgotten how to achieve it properly." "Like a doctor who knows he needs to perform surgery," added, "but has forgotten which end of the scalpel to use." The ship was now less than 1,000 kilometers from the Reaper's hull. Could see individual details on its surface: access ports, sensor arrays, what looked like maintenance hatches. Up close, it was clearly not a weapon of war, but a sophisticated piece of engineering equipment. Park said urgently, "I'm detecting a change in the Reaper's behavior. It is scanning us." "Do we abort?" "Wait," interrupted. "The scan patterns are not aggressive. It looks like curiosity, like it is trying to determine what we are." Maybe it has never seen a ship like ours before, suggested. All the attacks on these things have been with military vessels. We might be the first mining ship to get this close. Try responding to its scans, suggested. Send back some of our own sensor data, see if it recognizes us as non-threatening. Activated the ship's communication systems and began transmitting basic mathematical sequences, the universal language of intelligence. Prime numbers, geometric progressions, simple equations. To her amazement, the Reaper responded immediately with its own mathematical transmission. "It is talking to us," she breathed, "actually communicating." "What is it saying?" asked. Studied the incoming data. The patterns were complex but followed logical rules. I think it is asking for help." The revelation hit the entire team like a physical blow. The machine that everyone feared, that threatened to destroy an entire solar system, was asking for help. "It knows something is wrong," continued, her voice filled with wonder. "It knows it is not functioning correctly, but it does not know how to fix itself." "Like a person with amnesia," observed. "They know they have forgotten something important, but they cannot remember what." Over the next several hours, team managed to establish basic communication with the Reaper. The ancient machine's artificial intelligence was vast but confused. It had been trying to stabilize the star for millions of years, but corrupted data made every attempt counterproductive. "Look at this," said as she analyzed the data streams. "The machine thinks the star is much older and more unstable than it actually is. Its databases show readings from millions of years ago, when this star was in a different phase of its life cycle. So it is trying to fix problems that do not exist, understood, and creating real problems in the process." "Exactly. It is like a mechanic trying to repair a car using a manual for a completely different vehicle." The solution was becoming clear, but the implementation would be incredibly dangerous. They needed to update the Reaper's databases with current information about the star, then reprogram its core systems to use the correct maintenance protocols. "The problem," explained Doctor during the planning session that followed, "is that we need access to the central hub of the entire Reaper network. All these machines are connected, but they take their primary instructions from a master control unit." "Where is this central hub?" asked. Park brought up the sensor readings on the main display. "Inside the star's corona. The master unit is positioned at the point where it can monitor the star's core directly." The council chamber fell silent. The corona of their star was a hellish environment of superheated plasma and radiation. No ship in their fleet could survive more than a few minutes in that environment. "What about the human ship?" asked On. Admiral shook her head. "Our vessels are not designed for stellar operations either. The radiation levels alone would kill any crew within minutes." "Then how do we reach it?" asked. Had been studying the technical specifications of both human and technology. "We build something new," she said finally. "Combine human engineering with bioadaptive materials. Create a ship that can survive long enough to upload new programming to the central hub." "How long would such a mission take?" inquired. "Based on the data transfer requirements," calculated, "approximately 30 minutes inside the corona." 30 minutes in an environment that should kill any living thing in less than 5, observed grimly. Looked around the room at the mixture of human and faces. Some showed fear, others determination. All showed hope. "Well," she said with a grin, "no one ever said saving a solar system would be easy." The work began immediately. Human engineers and scientists labored side by side, combining technologies that had never been merged before. The resulting design was part spaceship, part biological organism, part computer system. As they worked, found herself developing deep respect for her colleagues. Their patient, methodical approach balanced perfectly with human creativity and improvisation. In particular, showed remarkable insight into both stellar physics and ancient programming languages. "Your people and mine," told her during a late-night work session, "we think very differently, but maybe that is exactly what this problem needs." "Different perspectives see different solutions," agreed. "My grandmother used to say that the deepest ocean can only be understood from many depths." 3 weeks later, their hybrid vessel was ready. It looked like nothing that had ever flown before, its hull covered with living bioarmor that could adapt to extreme conditions. powered by human fusion technology and guided by AI systems that combine the best of both species' computer science. The mission would be dangerous beyond measure, but for the first time since the crisis began, they had a real chance of saving not just the people, but their entire world. All they had to do was fly into the heart of a star and reprogram an ancient machine that had been operating since before either of their civilizations existed. Checked her gear one more time and smiled. Just another day saving the galaxy. Commander Jake ran through the final system checks as their hybrid vessel approached the star's corona. The ship around him was unlike anything he had ever piloted, its bioadaptive hull already beginning to change color as it prepared for the hellish environment ahead. Radiation levels increasing exponentially, reported from the co-pilot station. Her physiology allowed her to process sensor data faster than any human, making her invaluable for this mission. The bioarmor is responding well, but we are still 20 minutes from the central hub. Nodded, his hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Behind him, the joint human technical team monitored dozens of screens showing the ship's vital systems. Every piece of equipment had been tested and retested, but theory and practice were very different things when flying into a star. "Jake," came Admiral's voice through the communication system, "you are approaching the point of no return. Are you sure about this?" "As sure as anyone can be about something impossible," replied with a grin that had learned was typical human behavior when facing danger. The truth was, the mission required risks that made everyone uncomfortable. The ship could theoretically survive 30 minutes in the corona, but that calculation assumed perfect conditions. Any unexpected problems could kill them all in seconds. "Entering corona boundary in 30 seconds, announced Doctor, the human physicist who had designed their shielding systems. "All teams prepare for thermal shock." The moment they crossed into the corona, felt the ship shudder around them. The bioarmor on the hull began changing at the cellular level, adapting to temperatures that would vaporize normal metal in microseconds. He could see nothing but brilliant plasma flowing in impossible patterns around them. "Temperature readings are substantial," said with what recognized as understatement. The numbers on her screen showed heat levels that should not allow matter to exist. "But we are still alive," pointed out. "I call that a win." They pushed deeper into the corona, following sensor readings toward the central hub. The ancient machine was enormous, larger than some space stations, its crystalline structure somehow maintaining perfect stability in the chaotic plasma environment around it. "There it is," whispered Doctor, the who had spent months studying Reaper technology. "The master control unit for the entire network." The hub was beautiful in its alien way, a complex geometric shape that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human mind could easily process. Data streams flowed through its crystalline matrix like rivers of light, connecting it to every Reaper in the system. "Beginning approach to the docking interface," announced. "Everyone hold onto something, this is going to get interesting." The docking procedure had been practiced in simulation hundreds of times, but the real thing was infinitely more complex. The hub's interface was designed for machines, not organic beings, and connecting to it required precise alignment while flying through plasma storms that could destroy their ship. "Port coupling secured," reported Chief Engineer Martinez. "Beginning data connection." "Thermal readings climbing past safe limits," announced, her voice tense. "The bioarmor is starting to show stress patterns." "How long do we have?" asked. 15 minutes maximum, possibly less." On the main screen, strings of ancient code began flowing past as their computers interfaced with the hub systems. The programming language was millions of years old, but the mathematical principles were universal. "Got it," exclaimed Doctor. "I am inside the main database. Jake, this thing is incredible. It contains the complete stellar maintenance protocols for thousands of different star types, detailed records of every star the ancient race ever worked with, even predictive models for stellar evolution over billions of years." "Can you find the corruption?" asked. "Working on it. The codebase is massive. It might take—" "Wait, found something. There are date stamps in the stellar data, but they are all wrong. The system thinks this star is at the end of its natural instead of middle-aged." His fingers flew over her control panel. "That explains everything. The Reapers are trying to extend the life of an ancient, dying star, but our sun is young and healthy, so their efforts are having the opposite effect. Can you fix it? I need to upload new stellar survey data and recalibrate the maintenance algorithms. But Jake, this is going to take time we do not have. Checked his instruments. The ship's bioarmor was beginning to fail in several places. Radiation levels inside the cabin were climbing toward lethal levels. How much time do you need? 20 minutes minimum. We do not have 20 minutes. Turned to look at him, her large eyes showing the patterns that indicated deep thought in her species. Commander, what if we stayed? Stayed in the corona, we would be dead in 10 minutes. Not if I entered hibernation state, said quietly. My people can slow our biological processes dramatically during extreme environmental stress. I could survive long enough to complete the programming upload. Stared at her. We do not know what hibernation would do to you in this environment. You could be changed permanently. You might not wake up at all. But if I do not try, my entire civilization dies. Her voice was calm, but could see the fear in her movements. 40 billion of my people, Commander. How can I not take this risk? Before could respond, their ship shuddered violently. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the cabin. Hull breach in Section 7, reported Martinez. The bioarmor cannot maintain integrity much longer. New plan, announced. Uploads the critical fixes while I keep us alive. Everyone else prepare for emergency extraction. Commander, protested Doctor, the radiation levels. Will kill me, yes, I know. Began rerouting power to the failing bioarmor systems. But maybe not immediately, and maybe not before finishes the job. What followed were the longest 20 minutes of Jake's life. He fought to keep their ship intact while radiation slowly cooked him from the inside out. His hands began to shake, his vision blurred, but he never let go of the controls. Worked beside him in a state unlike anything he had ever seen. Her hibernation was not like human sleep, but a fundamental slowing of her entire biological system. Her movements became deliberate and precise, her mind focused with laser intensity on the ancient code flowing across her screens. Uploading stellar survey data, she announced, her voice strange and distant. Recalibrating maintenance protocols, establishing new operational parameters. How much longer? Asked through gritted teeth. 7 minutes. The system is accepting the new programming, but it needs time to propagate through the entire network. Felt something warm running down his face and realized it was blood. The radiation was breaking down his cellular structure faster than his body could repair it. But 7 minutes. He could last 7 minutes. Upload complete, announced finally. The hub is broadcasting new instructions to all Reapers in the system. Time to go, managed to say. But as they prepared to disconnect from the hub, something unexpected happened. Instead of simply shutting down, the ancient system began a complete transformation. The Reapers throughout the system stopped their harmful harvesting and started implementing proper stellar maintenance protocols. Jake, came Admiral's voice through the comm, filled with amazement. The star is stabilizing. Not just stabilizing, the Reapers are actually improving its efficiency. They are removing impurities from the nuclear fusion process, optimizing the magnetic field lines, even cleaning up solar flare activity. Watched through failing eyes as the plasma around them became calmer, more organized. The ancient machines were finally doing what they were designed to do, and the result was beautiful. Mission accomplished, he whispered. The extraction from the corona was a blur of pain and determination. Maintained consciousness just long enough to pilot their ship to safety before collapsing at the controls. The last thing he remembered was voice, changed by her hibernation experience but still recognizably her, calling for medical assistance. He woke up 3 days later in the medical bay of Admiral's flagship. The first thing he noticed was that he was alive, which came as something of a surprise. The second thing he noticed was floating in a medical tank next to his bed, still in her deep hibernation state. How is she? He asked Doctor, who was monitoring both of their conditions. Stable but changed, replied honestly. The hibernation state, combined with the radiation exposure, has triggered some kind of evolutionary adaptation in her physiology. We think she will be fine, but she may have new capabilities when she wakes up. And the star? Smiled, see for yourself. The doctor activated a wall screen showing their solar system. Where once the displays had been filled with red warning indicators, now everything showed green. The star burned brighter and cleaner than it had in centuries, its new Reaper-enhanced efficiency extending its by billions of years. The machines are not just maintaining the star, explained excitedly. They are optimizing it, removing instabilities, improving the entire system. They now have the most perfectly maintained star in the galaxy. Looked at the sleeping form of his mission partner. We did it. You did more than that, said softly. You gave the galaxy something it had not seen in a long time. You showed that impossible problems can have solutions if people are willing to work together and take risks for each other. As drifted back to sleep, he thought about the human fleet still orbiting Prime and the aquatic aliens who had welcomed them as family. He thought about ancient machines learning to fulfill their true purpose again, and stars that would burn bright and steady for billions of years to come. Sometimes, he reflected, the universe had a way of working out exactly as it should. 6 months after the mission to the star's corona, Elder Counselor swam through the observation dome of the new orbital station that humans had built together. Outside, their sun burned with a beauty she had never seen before. The ancient Reapers had not only saved their star, but made it better than it had ever been. The efficiency improvements are remarkable, said, who had recovered from her hibernation experience with new abilities that amazed both species scientists. She could now survive in environments that would kill ordinary, and her mind seemed to process information at incredible speeds. The star is producing 30% more energy while using its fuel more slowly. Our sun will now burn for 12 billion years instead of the original estimate of 8 billion. Watched her daughter work at the new joint research station they had established. Human and scientists moved together through the facility, some breathing air, others swimming in water-filled sections. The differences that had once seemed impossible to bridge now felt natural and right. Elder Counselor, came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral approaching, accompanied by Commander, who had made a remarkable recovery from his radiation exposure. Are you ready for the ceremony? Today marked the official founding of the Human Alliance, but it was more than just a treaty between two species. Word of their success had spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other civilizations and challenging the way everyone thought about cooperation and problem-solving. The ceremony took place in the main assembly hall, a magnificent space designed to accommodate both aquatic and air-breathing beings. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to witness the signing, including some who had refused to help during the crisis. 6 months ago, began her speech, addressing the mixed audience of humans and aliens from across the galaxy, our world faced extinction. The great powers of the galaxy offered us sympathy and evacuation ships. Only one civilization offered us hope. She gestured to the human delegation. They came not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they believed that no problem is too difficult when people work together. They showed us that the greatest strength is not the power to destroy, but the willingness to help. Admiral stood to respond. Elder Counselor, the humans who came here learned as much as we taught. Your people showed us the value of patience, of thinking in terms of thousands of years instead of decades. You taught us that wisdom comes not from quick action but from deep understanding. The formal treaty signing was followed by presentations about the technological advances that had emerged from their cooperation. The bioadaptive materials developed for their mission into the corona were already being used to create habitats that could survive in previously impossible environments. The programming techniques used to repair the Reapers had applications in everything from artificial intelligence to space navigation. But perhaps most importantly, other species had begun to take notice. The Crystalline Empire has requested technical assistance with their failing moon bases, reported Doctor during the science briefing. They specifically asked for a joint human team. The Machine Collective wants to discuss cooperation on artificial intelligence research, added. They said our success with the Reapers proves that organic and synthetic intelligence can work together in new ways. Even more surprising were the smaller civilizations that had begun reaching out. Young species that had been ignored by the galactic powers now looked to the Human Alliance as proof that new ideas and fresh perspectives could solve problems that centuries of conventional thinking could not. We are receiving distress calls, Admiral told the assembled leaders. Not just requests for help, but invitations to participate. Species are asking us to join their research projects, their exploration missions, their diplomatic negotiations. They want our perspective on their challenges. Felt a deep satisfaction as she listened to these reports. The galaxy was changing, moving away from the old patterns of established powers hoarding knowledge and newer civilizations being ignored. The example set by humans and was creating ripple effects throughout known space. There is one more thing, added with a smile. The Galactic Council has invited our alliance to become a voting member. They want us to help mediate disputes and provide consultation on seemingly impossible problems. And our response, asked. We said yes with conditions. Any problem brought to us must be shared with our full alliance network. No more closed-door meetings of great powers deciding the fate of smaller civilizations. If they want our help, they accept our way of doing things. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of the new alliance emblem, a symbol that combined human and artistic elements, representing two species reaching toward the stars together. But as looked at the mixed crowd of beings from dozens of worlds, she knew the alliance would not remain limited to just two species for long. Later that evening, she found Commander in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the Reapers as they continued their eternal dance around the star. The ancient machines had become guardians now, their movements precise and graceful as they maintained perfect stellar conditions. Commander, she said, settling into the water-filled section of the lounge beside him. I wanted to thank you personally for what you sacrificed for my people. Smiled, though she noticed he moved more slowly than before. The radiation exposure had left permanent effects, but he claimed not to regret his choice. Elder Counselor, I did not sacrifice anything. I gained something. What do you mean? Before this mission, I was just a ship commander in a small fleet from an unimportant world. Now I am part of something bigger, something that matters. My children will grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is valued over competition, where new ideas are welcomed instead of dismissed. He gestured toward the viewing ports where human and children were playing together in the station's recreation areas. They had created games that worked both in air and water, developing friendships that would shape the future of both species. Those children will never think it is strange to work with people who are completely different from them, continued. They will assume that the best solutions come from combining different perspectives. That is worth any sacrifice. Swam up to join them, her movements still showing the strange grace that had developed after her hibernation experience. Father has asked me to lead the new joint research initiative, she announced. We will be studying ancient technologies throughout the galaxy, looking for other systems that might need repair or renovation. More broken machines to fix, asked with amusement. More opportunities to help, corrected. The galaxy is full of abandoned technologies, failed projects, and impossible problems. Someone needs to take a fresh look at them. Thought about the irony of it all. 6 months ago, they had been a dying civilization with no hope. Now they were part of a growing alliance that was changing how the entire galaxy approached difficult problems. There is something I want to show you both, said, activating a holographic display. This is a message we received today. The hologram showed a species neither human nor beings that looked like living crystals with complex geometric bodies. Their representatives spoke in harmonics that the translation system rendered as urgent but hopeful. To the human alliance, the crystal being said, our score is destabilizing due to uncontrolled mining operations. Our scientists say the situation is impossible to fix. We have heard of your success with the impossible. We do not know what we can offer in return, but we ask, will you help us? And looked at each other, then at. The question hung in the space between them, filled with possibility and challenge. Well, said finally, no one ever said changing the galaxy would be easy. Felt the familiar stirring of excitement that had become common since the humans arrived. Another impossible problem, another chance to prove that cooperation could triumph over convention. Send our reply, she told. Tell them what Admiral told us, help is on the way. As the three of them watched their perfect star burn in the distance, surrounded by its guardian machines and orbited by ships from dozens of worlds, realized that they had created something greater than either species could have achieved alone. They had started a revolution of hope, a movement that would spread from world to world until the entire galaxy understood a simple truth. No problem is impossible when people choose to help each other instead of turning away. The message was already spreading. Tomorrow, new distress calls would arrive, new challenges would present themselves, new opportunities to prove that the impossible was just another word for not yet solved. And somewhere in the galaxy, other civilizations were beginning to ask themselves not, what is in it for us, but how can we help? The revolution had only just begun.